So when someone says something negative to you, they're literally like spelling, like putting that spell onto you. And then you start to actually personalize it over time. And something will always feel off within you, that for moments you're going to actually think that it's true. Everything that you experience is in your body, whether you know it or you're not. And to have that mind-body connection to release those emotions gives you such a freeing feeling. You can sit there and be mindful. You can say, okay, life will go on, and let me make meaning out of this situation. Let me stay in gratitude because this is all here to help me. And I am capable of going through this. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. I believe that if it was given to you in your life, you will have the resiliency and the strength and the power to get through it. It's going to be hard though.
An exploration of trauma, transformation, and triumph. Your healing starts here. And we are back with another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber, your host. And today I have with me a special guest, Miss Zahra Adloo. Zahra has an amazing background in mental health. She is a mental health professional, and she helps people find meaning and purpose by really uncovering their authentic selves. She does everything from Eastern philosophy to Western psychology, and her focus is really on self-compassion and empowerment. She finds that this really transforms people's lives, those who are struggling through trauma, addiction, anxiety, depression, and body image issues. And she has quite an extensive training in this. Zahra, thank you so much. I know we're going to get into more about what you do and why you do it, but thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amber. I think this is such an incredible podcast that you do. It showcases like how people struggle and navigate with life's challenges, and how at the end, there's always like this light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think what I would love to do is just share my story and also be able to highlight that light, through hard work and that inner journey that you go through. There's always that light, and you end up coming out so resilient and empowered afterwards.
Yeah, and you have quite a background. You've been in mental health profession for quite a while now.
Yes, for sure. So it is actually my second career. I used to be in IT. So I used to work in software development projects, managing software development teams. So completely opposite as to what I am doing now with my healing. But it's just like, it's a testament to show that like I was not aligned to my authentic self. And through that work that I was doing, I had so much anxiety and stress. And that was a message from my inner gut, from my body, my soul telling me I needed to navigate outwards. This is like a story for a lot of people who are doing occupations that are not aligned with their purpose. And so how do you get to your purpose if you don't even understand yourself? Right. So it just kind of brings you back to you. And that's what it did for me. It brought me back to me. And then I went back to school, became a clinical counselor. And through that journey, I've learned so much about myself, but also I've learned so much about the broken systems that exist in mental health, particularly with addiction and addiction treatment. They're just outdated. And through that, it led me to plant medicines. And that's where I am now, integrating my mental health knowledge with plant medicines to help people, have this catalyzed journey towards healing and self-awareness, to bring them back to themselves before all the experiences that left dents and impressions on their body and their minds, take them away from what they're really supposed to be doing to feel fulfilled in life.
Yeah. And do you find that this is kind of a common occurrence with people? I mean, obviously there's a journey that we go through in life where you're finding the journey of life is kind of finding yourself. But do you find that people that you work with, and even on your own personal journey, do you find that a lot of people kind of go astray before they find their place or their purpose, or really what they're kind of, like what you said, back to themselves?
Yeah, I think that all of it is intergenerational. for some of us, come from parents who didn't look at their emotions, didn't have the ability or the chance to become self-aware, were married young, had children young, and then therefore had to raise other human beings completely in a systemic manner, and not really able to see what they needed to work on before they passed it on to their generational, their offsprings. And so I think a lot of us who go through this journey of self-awareness and healing are privileged to be able to say, hey, like, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm noticing there needs to be change. And what can I do to get there? But a lot of us got our traumas and learned behaviors from parents or grandparents or caregivers who were not able to do the work on themselves, whether they're incapable or just didn't have the opportunity due to their finances or their culture, marrying young or, having kids at a young age. So I think there's a lot that goes into not having the self-awareness for change. And so sometimes, we grow up wanting to be the caregiver because that's the role we were given or we thought we needed to be. And so we neglect ourselves. And then therefore we think that self-sabotage is a way of love. And so, yes, we become astray from what that voice or that purpose is telling us to do within, because we're tending to our external environment a lot more and we're unable to sit with ourselves. So I think, yeah, it's a common thread that I've noticed for a lot of people, and a lot of people cope with it in different ways that are maladaptive. Most of the people I've worked with have coped through addictions, so gambling, drugs, behavioral addictions, and then have hit rock bottom to the point where they had no other place to go and they needed to come and do an ibogaine journey, which we'll get into, to help them rewire their brains and give them a new beginning to their lives, kind of give them like a rebirth to be able to see these things and be able to tackle them with a larger window of tolerance.
Do you think that addiction it's kind of a culprit for trauma? Do you think that they look to addiction or they get addicted to things because they're looking to kind of cover up or help ease the pain of trauma?
Yeah. So that's exactly what I mean by window of tolerance. Like, we can only handle so much. And when we aren't taught coping skills, when we don't have hobbies, and we don't have good relationships, we don't know how to express our emotions, we, mask how we feel because that's what is acceptable in society. What do those emotions do? It's like taking a balloon or a beach ball, and submerging it in water. It's going to shoot up with force. So that's just how all the emotions feel within. And so what do we do with that? And society goes to drinking, or numbing with drugs, because that's a way of how people like learn to decrease their inhibition and be able to like let go of all that ego and all that inner voice that tells them that they can't talk about their emotions or that they can't be themselves. And so eventually when they start to see the benefits of like masking, avoiding, or just like suppressing, they get used to that habit because their window of tolerance is low. They don't know how to manage all of these emotions that come up. And so I think that it's a way that our brains learn how to help us resolve whatever we have going on. And there's no shame in that. And that's one thing I want to say. Have compassion for that part of you that was trying to find a solution. And perhaps in your environment, drugs and alcohol were more prevalent, and that was the solution. And so therefore, that's what you had to do to calm your mind, your nerves, and allow your body some time to like relieve itself, its nervous system. So compassion, total love there. But eventually you realize that those coping skills or mechanisms are maladaptive. They're not doing you well in life. They're leading you to lose your job. They're leading you to lose your relationships, or leading you towards like self-destructive behaviors. And so at that point, that's when you have to look at yourself and really acknowledge that it is you that made these choices. It worked for a little bit, probably temporarily, but that eventually it wasn't something long-term. So what can you do now to change your lifestyle so that you do have a larger window of tolerance? You can sit there and be mindful. You can say, okay, life will go on, and Let me make meaning out of this situation. Let me stay in gratitude because this is all here to help me. And I am capable of going through this. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. I believe that if it was given to you in your life, you will have the resiliency and the strength and the power to get through it. It's going to be hard though. It's going to be a lot, and you can't do it alone. You need help. So, but that's what you have to face, right? You have to face all these things. You have to face the challenges, and alcohol and drugs and other addictions help you temporarily. So they don't really help you face the root causes. And that is what I want to speak about.
And it is a shame because I've often thought this too. Why are we taught so many things in school, but we're not taught how to manage emotions? Like, that's the one thing that we need to be taught. And I think some people have this misunderstanding that you just learn this naturally by being around people, but you don't. That's not a natural thing that you learn. And it's a skill that and I think anyone that's been on a growth journey, self-growth journey, can look back and say, it took, like you said, it took work. It took a little bit of time to learn how to manage these things. But once you learn how to manage it, life is really beautiful. And life is about how we see things. It's the perception that we see things. And I think it's mesmerizing that you can't have two thoughts at the same time. Like, you can't have a negative and a positive thought at the same time. So if you're filling your brain with like gratitude and the positive things, and you're learning how to manage these emotions and reframing when things happen to you, like being the victim, but reframing that into, this is happening for me, then all of a sudden life begins to get really beautiful, even in the midst of chaos. I love that you said have some grace with yourself, because I think so many times we feel shame around these things. We gravitate to these things because we don't know how to manage our emotions. And then all of a sudden we feel embarrassed that we fell so far down in the depth of this thing. You have a vast experience in a lot of things. And I know from reading over your bio, there's a lot of energetic things there. And I've become consumed in learning about energy. So I want to learn more from you when it comes to that, for sure.
Oh, I'd love to share. I became a Reiki master 2017. And I bring this up because somatic work for trauma is so important, because we often get disconnected from our bodies because it's too much to feel. So we begin to compartmentalize and intellectualize, and that's where all the anxiety and the OCD comes in, depression, right? So we really need to get connected to our bodies. And what I help with my clients do is feel those emotions through Reiki. You can do distance Reiki, which means like they don't have to be in your presence, or you can do it, hovering over them, or you can actually do it with physical touch. But what it allows you to do is remove emotional blockages from their body. And it gives the person like a cathartic experience with someone else present, giving them that safe space to just release and be. And so sometimes people don't even know what these emotions are. So when you have someone who is skilled, they can actually feel you through, like, being the practitioner can feel the emotion, because that's what I feel. And I will actually verbalize it, and I'll name it, and I'll say, I'm sensing, I'm feeling anxiety here in your gut, or I'm sensing that there's pain and heaviness in your shoulders. And then I just let the client lead. So that could, prompt them to say something about how they feel like the world's heavy on their shoulders and that they're taking on so much right now. And then they start to release emotions through that and start crying. Or I'm feeling anxious in my gut because I'm going through a breakup or a bad relationship. But sometimes, and you can sense it, like you'll start to buzz, your palms will start to buzz. And so it's not until I say something that they start to say, like, I do feel that right there. And so that helps them get guidance on how to connect with that part of them and actually acknowledge it. And even if you don't have a Reiki practitioner to help you, you can do this with like body scans. So getting yourself into the practice of just playing a guided body scan normally, and just allowing yourself to like lay there and feel each part of your body and the sensations that come up. And then moving in with curiosity is to figure out what those emotions could mean or what those pain points can be. There's a really good book by Louise Hayes called Heal Your Body. And it actually goes into like you put in the emotion or like the illness that you have, and it will give you what you're going through in your life and the affirmation you need to say to be able to reverse that pain point or that emotion that's causing you dis-ease and dysregulation. So that's really, really cool. But for me, myself, I went to a somatic embodiment coach and she did the same thing. And it's amazing how just like touch from someone else and you feeling safe in their presence and them just like breathing with you and acknowledging the emotions that, are passing without judgment can be so impactful for your mental health to release, because the body keeps the score. It's a really popular book. Everything that you experience is in your body, whether you know it or you're not. And to have that like mind body connection to release those emotions gives you such a freeing feeling. And that's why I really, really believe in somatic work such as Reiki, yoga, somatic experiencing, somatic embodiment, body scan meditations. I really, really want to highlight the importance of developing a connection to self, your body. And with time, when you start to experience new things, you begin to realize that your body is actually leading you. You begin to get in touch with your intuition. And so when you're in a situation that feels off, you'll be able to say, I may not know how to make logical sense of this, but my body is telling me something's going on here and I need to remove myself from this environment. So then instead of your body being distressful for you, it becomes to be like a teacher and a guide. And that's what's so beautiful about moving into and leaning into doing body work and connecting with your body. And I say that it's difficult because yes, a lot of people don't have that window of tolerance right now, and they don't have the coping skills and they don't have the ability to sit with those emotions. But I want to bring this up that eventually it becomes so magical connecting to your emotions. So just do the hard work, like put yourself through it and you will begin to see life with ease and magic. There's just this like magic involved in being connected to yourself and feeling like your authenticity is shining through. And now your gut, your intuition is also leading you, and your mind is able to lead you as well with making logical decisions.
And I resonate with everything that you're saying. I actually had an experience. I don't know, honestly, if it was Reiki, but it was like energy healing. But I think when I describe it to people, they're like, oh yeah, that was Reiki. But I found immense healing from it. And I like to know how things work. So for me, I'm like, how did that work? I went to this healer because I had several friends that had gone to her and just had amazing results. And I was going through a divorce, really rough time in my life. And I'm like, I need healing. So I go to see her. It was an experience for sure. But when I left there, the things that it kind of brought up was things that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to know, I guess. Like, I'll give you an example. When she was over top of me. And, when she was in certain areas, I would see colors in my eyes, like this is a meditative state almost. And I would see these colors in my eyes, and I had no idea about chakras. I didn't know anything to do with any of that. This has been several years ago. When I got finished, she said, "How was your experience?" I said, "Well, I saw these colors in my eyes." She's like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of normal or whatever." And I went home and I Googled it because I was like, seeing colors when you meditate. Because again, I'm inquisitive and I want to know how things work. And then the colors that I saw, the parts of the body she was over when I seen these colors aligned with the chakras. And I was like, that's bizarre, like to me. So I went on this whole journey over the next several years, even up until now, where I want to know how that all works. And it's been a beautiful thing, honestly. And I truly believe that our whole universe is built on energy. So we are energetic beings. So why wouldn't energy healing? Why wouldn't these things work? And I'm reading a book now. I've read The Body Keeps the Score. It comes up a lot on this podcast, as you could probably imagine. But I'm reading another book now called The Emotion Code. Have you read that book?
Oh, yeah. I know all about that.
Yeah.
I've had an emotion code like session done on me. So they don't talk about it a lot in the psychological field, like in psychology, but it's definitely like a spiritual practice. Like they talk about it in spiritual practices that I've been to. And it's incredible. I actually just wanted to bring up the pendulum because I don't know if you're a practitioner, if you've had it done, use the pendulum.
I haven't ever, but he does talk about it in the book. He does talk about, yeah. But yeah, tell us all about it because you know more than I do.
Basically, and so there are like categories and they use the pendulum to be able to identify what categories in your life and all those categories have to do with like an emotion. And so like where and what emotion your body is stuck. And then you get deeper and then it gets specific to the age. And then from there, you're able to identify, okay, at what point in my life when I was 12, did I experience deep shame or embarrassment? And then you get to release that. So I don't personally know how to do it, but I've had it done and it's really incredible. It's so cool because that in itself gives you like a cathartic experience. There are probably like instances in your life where you didn't even think about embarrassing moment in like 5th grade, right? It was just like buried away, but somehow the body is still stuck with that emotion. And so when it gets brought to your awareness again, then you're like, okay, I need to release that and let it go. So you got to talk about it. But when we're talking about chakras, a cool trick that I've done with clients is I actually take a pendulum or you can take a necklace that has like a little pendant at the bottom. And you can actually wave it over each person's chakra point. So like the crown right above here, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your sacral, or your solar plexus, sacral right above the navel, and then your root. And if it goes in a circle, that means that like that chakra is opened. If it goes back and forth, it means there's a blockage there. So it's really, really interesting because the other day I did it with my friend who came over and I'm like, you know what? I really feel like my heart is closed right now. Can you just like run and do, and she doesn't know anything about this. I just taught her how to do it on the spot. And lo and behold, it showed that everything else was really open, but my heart was like, closed. And that's because of like a recent breakup that I had that I'm processing right now. It's really, really cool. And I hope that you guys get to take that. It really works. And then it like, depending on how open it is how fast and how large their circle is. So
wow.
If like, it might be open, but it might be a small, slow circle, which means, okay, you can still do some work here. But if it's like super open and wide, then it goes faster. And it's just really cool to see how energy works in that way too.
It's a lot to wrap your mind around because again, this is something that's not taught. It's not taught to us. And even in science, like I don't know that there's not been some type of conspiracy that has like kept schools from really teaching how we're so made up in energy, because to me, it feels like that's something that should be taught more. And, I don't know spiritually, like, I don't know if I'm sure you're a very spiritual person, but like I'm a Christian. When I went to do that session, I was just like, is this demonic? Cause this is something, girl, I'm from the Bible Belt. Like I'm from Tennessee. So
Muslims. So I get it. There are like religious restrictions or beliefs that hold us back and make us feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't be doing this, right? Like this must be like, demonic, like you said. So I actually wasn't a believer myself until I had a session done on me. I remember my one best friend telling me she just got Reiki certified and she's like, I have energy healing through my palms. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, she is really off. Like something's wrong with her. And then I had the opportunity to have a session done on me. And when I experienced what you're saying, I actually experienced like this block. It felt like this heaviness, like shift away from my head. The moment I experienced that, I was like, well, there's something here. Whatever this is, I'm going to lean in and see what it's about. I think these practices are just a way to like uncover our truths and what's holding us back. But to be dependent on anything for me, because I'm spiritual, and I believe in all religions. I can't say that I practice one, but I'm always connected to God, and I believe in a higher power. And so whatever takes me away from seeking God's guidance and support and praying to him is what feels demonic to me. And so if I'm doing this practice, if I am depending on that for my peace, then I'm like, this is too much. Because this is a tool, but I am always going to pray to God. I'm always going to seek his guidance, because for me, that's been what's been the most beneficial. And so I think these are all tools, but they're definitely not to replace your connection with God and your higher power.
And I think too, when you start looking into just human existence and how we are as human beings, you start to see that everything is energy. Have you ever heard of the Fibonacci sequence?
Yeah, I have.
I don't want to get too off topic, but
I would love for you to talk about it a little bit, because I've heard of it. I just don't know a lot. Like, I know it has to do with numbers. I even know like there's like a whole, I think it's the diagram. It's like a little circular.
Yeah.
It's
like a spiral.
Yeah, spiral. Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, definitely not an expert in it. I watched a documentary on it, and that's about as far as my expertise goes. But what amazed me about it was that in the universe, you have this spiral with the exact same ratios, the dimensional ratios or whatever, is found all throughout the universe. So to say that there's not a creator, to say that this all just happened, it's like that to me seems, I don't know how
bizarre.
anyone could think that. Yeah, it's very bizarre, because everything, and even in our own bodies, like that same sequence is found throughout our organs, throughout our eyeballs.
Well, even our chakras that you talked about, those are energy centers within our body, and they're all circular.
Yeah. So when you start going down this rabbit hole of like, what is this? And I'm inquisitive, so I want to know. I want to know all things. Like, tell me. And I love talking to other people, especially with different views, because I'm like, I want to know. Maybe it opens my mind to something that I haven't been exposed to. I don't believe in living in a closed, like you're just in your bubble and you believe things because other people believe it. Like, I want to know why I believe certain things. So it's a rabbit hole that I would encourage people to go down, because it's amazing when you start to go down that rabbit hole of all of the things that align and how really energetic we are, even to the, like you were talking earlier about the palms and touch. But I do believe there's energy in touch. Someone could be having a really bad day, and you could just put your hand on their shoulder and it start to shift their mentality or their mood. But I also believe energy it can also be transferred, like you and I are on a call right now. I don't know, are you in California now?
Los Angeles, yep.
Los Angeles, and I'm in all the way, on the other side of the nation. I'm in Tennessee. And so, but still you and I have a certain energy transfer or exchange. So it's very interesting to go down and start looking at some of that. And it's not demonic at all. It's actually very spiritual, and it gives you a better understanding, I feel like, of your creator, of God, when you can see all of these things that correspond inside of our bodies and inside of our universe. But anyway, that's my extent of knowledge on that.
Well, I want to highlight there for people who don't believe in spirituality when it comes to mental health, there is a book titled Magic Mind that speaks about the neuroscience of your thoughts and spiritual beliefs. So it like breaks it down to a science as to how real and true it is to really focus on reframing your thoughts, staying in gratitude, being of service to people, and like how that not only affects your mental health, but is like scientifically proven to do that. So, I mean, there are a lot of people who really need science to be able to like feel solid in their belief. And then there are people who are just okay with spirituality, and they're like, okay, that will lead me to wherever I need to go. So I really like that book. And also, when you were talking about teaching, there is at MIT, there's a program taught by Zahra Adloo. She's all about integrating the woo-woo with science, with neuroscience. So like when it comes to mental health, yes, you can just take the advice from your therapist and start journaling, or you can say, okay, neuroscience proves that if you journal, it limits the amount of cortisol released in your body because you're getting out that emotion through that energy exchange, through that, that writing, or through verbalizing it and connecting with someone to do so. So like all of it can be explained in the way that you want to take it in. It's available for all. But yeah, to say that there isn't a creator, to say that like these mountains were created on their own or the skies just came out of nowhere. I mean, like yeah. And there's a reason why throughout centuries, religion has existed. So whether we want to look at it in a bad way or a positive way, I do know from the positive perspective, like it's built community. I know that my parents, when they immigrated to the US, they found community in this new place where they didn't have family with the religious group that they followed with the same values. So they felt this sense of safety in that group. And so you can choose again to take your perspective on anything and make it be positive or negative. And it's just being aware of it is the start. So just be aware of when you're saying negative things to yourself about something, whether it's religion, whether it's a friendship or a thought, be aware. And then with that awareness, change will happen. And Magic Mind just helps you see how magical life can be when you let go of the fears, when you let go of all those limiting beliefs, when you let go of thoughts that just don't serve you. And life just becomes magical. I'm here with you right now, doing a podcast, and that is an energy exchange, but it's because I worked on my mind. I would have never in a few years ago seen myself talking and sharing my story. I was the one that always kept quiet. And now I'm doing like 3 podcasts a week. So it's all through what I told myself. And through that, I built connections. I found, resources to get me to connecting with you. It's just everything just starts to show up in your life. And then the more you do that, the more like ingrained it becomes in your psyche. So then it just becomes a part of your existence. And then you no longer need like external validation or these coping mechanisms that didn't help you bring upon you the life that you desire.
That
Energy,
is so good.
God, all of that, spirituality is really like what helps. It really does especially if you've been traumatized in your life.
That's so good what you just said. And I'm going to have to check that book out, The Magic Mind, because it sounds very interesting. And I do believe I had to work really hard to shift my mindset when I went through a divorce, and it was traumatizing. It's like, oh, everybody goes through that.
Talk about my trauma experience. So
yeah.
I would love to talk about divorce because I think there's so many women that go through unhappy relationships, whether they were married young or whether they feel stuck. That was my story. I felt very stuck in the relationship that I was in. And it's because I was being abused and traumatized. When you're going through abuse, you don't see things objectively and you do feel stuck. You can be the president of the United States, but if you are being abused mentally, I just want to say, don't ever have shame on feeling stuck. Don't ever feel bad about where you are. Your brain was rewired and you've been suffering to the degree where this is how you're responding to it. Some people flee, some people fight, some people freeze, and I was one of those who froze. And I actually sought help through doing intense inner work. It was the family constellation work. So that was energetic. And that practice is actually won like a Nobel Peace Prize. The creator won that. So it's something that works. And then I did an ibogaine journey, which not a lot of people know about. So ibogaine is the strongest psychedelic in the world. It is derived from a root bark from a tree called Tabernath iboga. And it's a ritual and a ceremonial practice that was, that's been taking place for centuries in Gabon, Africa, and western parts of Africa. And it was westernized when a person, he used it in the US and he was a heroin addict. And he just took it and realized that his heroin addiction was gone the next day. He didn't have the cravings. And so it's really westernized and known for addiction treatment, but it's also really good for trauma, traumatic brain injury, now Parkinson's disease. So for me, I went and I did a treatment myself, and it's available in Mexico. It's not in other parts of the world, but not in the US yet. And when I went through this journey, it completely rewired my brain to be able to see things from a different perspective and have the strength and the empowerment to finally and like for once and for all, like emotionally detached from my abuser. And so, yeah, I did a lot of inner work. I did a lot of therapy, but it helped, right? But this was the catalyst that got me to be able to say like, hey, your life is fine. Like you are financially supported. You have the educational resources and knowledge. You have a job. You have a good support system, good family. You have all the coping skills. What is it that is holding you on? Like you don't need to do this. And I completely shifted everything in my life for me. And since then, I've been advocating for this plant medicine because I know for a lot of women, it is super difficult to see themselves getting out of a situation, no matter how, you know, intellectual or, you know, self-sufficient they are. When you are being abused, sometimes there is no light. You don't see that light. And sometimes it is okay to go towards Eastern approaches if that works for you, if you feel called to it, to help you get out of that cycle of abuse. And so that's what I had to do to get out. And that's, you know, I advocate for it all the time, because a lot of people can go through therapy and spend years doing that and then make a shift, or you can go to get an ibogaine treatment alongside with therapy for half the amount of the time and move on with your life and just, you know, go to places you've never saw yourself, you know, being. And for me, this podcast is included in that.
It is new to me. I had not heard of that. And I've interviewed several people that have done, you know, the psychedelic therapy or whatever, but I had not heard of that. I can't speak on it because obviously I don't have experience with it, but I'm of the belief as well. Like if you have something that is going to help you get over some of these things, because this is the thing, people will go into rock bottom and they don't know how to get out. And this is what breaks my heart. This is why I feel called to do this podcast. I mean, because I don't want people to feel alone. I've been in a dark place in my life where I felt like so alone. And I also was in a relationship that was mentally and emotionally abusive. And it does, you feel really alone in that. And it's a really sad place to be. And I just don't want people to think that you're alone in that, and find what modality works best for you. You know, it's trial and error. It's like I come out of the fitness industry, and it's like same thing with fitness. Not every single workout is going to work for every single person. CrossFit's not going to work for everybody. Weightlifting and bodybuilding is not going to work for everybody. Yoga may not work for everybody. But find the thing that works for you. Overall, fitness is a powerful thing, just like mental health is a powerful thing. You have to find the right modality, you have to find the right thing that's going to work for you, which is another reason why I interview people like you who have more experience in these things, because I want you to bring this expertise to my audience and to people who feel hopeless, because it's really sad when someone feels hopeless. And you can get in these pockets of life, especially if you're in an abusive situation where someone is constantly telling you these things about how bad you are, then it does start to influence your mind. And eventually you're like, I really am a bad person. I'm bad at this. I'm bad at that. And then your self-talk
Words are
takes
like
over.
spells, right? Like words are literally
Yes.
like spells. So when someone says something negative to you, they're literally like putting that spell onto you. And then you start to actually personalize it over time. Something will always feel off within you that for moments you're going to actually think that it's true. And it's so sad how someone feels a right to want to say those things to anyone, you know, and to belittle anyone with their words. So yeah, I'm really, really, really happy that your path brought you to do this, because people do need to understand they're not alone in this journey. A lot of times I've worked with clients who suffer from addiction, as I mentioned, and I worked in a treatment center for a very, very long time. And I noticed that my clients would keep coming back. So like, not just my clients, but clients in general would keep coming back. They would gain sobriety for a period of time, go out into the real world, and then relapse, come back. And then each time they came back, what you said was hopelessness. And they had that feeling of hopelessness, like something is wrong with me. But it was really because their brain chemistry was off, or they didn't have the early intervention when they were younger to deal with mental health issues that they didn't address. So they're self-medicating and also dealing with stressors from their lives through these means. And so I quickly picked up this cycle, and I was like, there's something that has to exist that actually helps these people. Like you said, trial and error. If something doesn't work, continue to seek out new ways to heal, continue to be curious, ask around, ask ChatGPT. We have that now, right? Like, ask for advice, and you will be led to that path. So for me, it was, how can I be a better clinician? How can I be a better therapist? Have this trusting relationship with my client if I'm not able to give or help them out more than I can, and I'm seeing them continuously coming back, there's something off. So I knew about ibogaine when I was in my graduate study. So I went towards that. I did a treatment for myself, and I now advocate for it because I've actually seen hundreds of people's lives like change, where they were totally addicted or suffer from depression, and they went and they did a treatment and their lives completely transformed. I mean, there was an episode on Joe Rogan that spoke about this. Stanford Medical School did a study on this for veterans who had traumatic brain injury. So there are a lot of research studies out there that show its efficacy, but that was the motivation for me, was to seek more.
Is this a plant?
What was that?
Ibogaine, is it a plant? Is it plant medicine?
It is a plant. It's from the root bark of a tree. So ibogaine is one of the alkaloids that comes from the iboga tree. So the iboga tree has 12 different alkaloids. Ibogaine is one of them. And ibogaine actually has helped with Parkinson's disease, depression, anxiety, traumatic brain injury, and addiction. That's what it's been really popular for. But in Africa, they just use it as a part of their rituals in their community. I mean, they even give low doses to babies when they're growing up. And so they really feel like there's a spiritual presence there, and that this is like a sacrament from God. And that's how valuable it is for them in their country. So it's actually a plant medicine that is exclusive. It's really expensive to get treatment, but luckily I work with a clinic named New Path Ibogaine, and they have a scholarship fund for those who really need treatment, feel stuck, feel hopeless, and they will fund your entire treatment, or at least partial of it, so that you can get out of this cycle that you're stuck in your mind because you're wired differently, or that, if you've been through so much abuse to where your neurons aren't firing the way that they used to, or you're missing certain hormones in your brain, and your neurons are just, I'm not a neuroscientist, but like something is just off, right? And so, yeah, I really love that you mentioned trial and error.
And I think, just to kind of add to that, or just to kind of put some clarity on this as well. And okay, pharmaceuticals have their place, but if I was going to get on some type of medicine or medicinal type thing to help with mental health, I would much rather do experiment with the plant medicines than I would with pharmaceuticals, because a lot of times pharmaceuticals, which is a drug, it's more like a Band-Aid.
But it doesn't get to the root cause.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm of the belief, hey, let's sit with the emotion. I truly believe there's a lot of validity in that, just sitting with your emotions and being able to feel them instead of stuffing them way back and not dealing with them, because I truly believe your body manifests them in some way, maybe not immediately, but eventually it's going to come out in some type of sickness or something. And I'm starting to believe, that's the best way to frame it, that pharmaceuticals can sometimes suppress that feeling so much that it's almost encouraging people to press those feelings back instead of actually dealing with them. Where you have modalities like what you do, even, you're an expert in yoga, you're an expert in all of these different modalities. And to me, it's like, why not try the things that's going to actually release those emotions instead of just suppressing them?
Right, right. I agree with you. I think that there's such a wisdom in these practices, and to not move in with curiosity or just doing yourself a disservice. There's a really good book titled Anatomy of the Spirit, and a psychiatrist actually wrote this about her experiences with her clients. And she, as you mentioned, if you don't address the root cause or you don't address the emotions, they actually end up causing dis-ease in your body. So for instance, she gave an example about a woman who was staying in a marriage where she was unhappy, and the husband had a sexual addiction. And so every time she slept with him, she felt really, really bad. And she just continued to dismiss those emotions and continue to kind of live life with him, and feel like she felt like she couldn't get out. And eventually led her to getting cervical cancer. And this is all from a psychiatrist. And then there was another example about a man who was working in a job that was really stressful for him and his heart. And he ended up dying of a heart attack, So these issues, these emotions are so much stronger. I mean, yeah, we don't see them, right? They're not like a cut on our arm that, we can put a Band-Aid on and say, ouch, these emotions are within. But if you don't address them, they definitely do cause disease in the body. And that book, I mean, there's so many different examples from clients that she has. Carolyn Miss wrote that book. It's so good. Even if you listen to like a chapter of it on an audiobook, I think it will give you a lot of insight into how important it is to address these emotions. As difficult as it is, find whatever modality through your trial and error. Even if you don't know what you want to do, seek that with the awareness that you have. And those answers will come to you through people that you meet, through podcasts you listen to, through YouTube channels that you see. You will get the answer, and then it'll lead you towards healing. But yeah, definitely address those emotions. Do not suppress. You mentioned some of these pharmaceutical drugs being like a Band-Aid, and that's exactly what it is. I got certified in psilocybin assisted therapy, which is really proven to be effective for depression. And I read a book actually titled Psychedelics that mentioned this. That he said in the book that when you take an antidepressant, it's as if like you have a cast on your arm. So your emotional brain is really sensitive, and this antidepressant acts as a cast. So it's not allowing anything harmful to continue to damage your emotional centers, to continue to give you more distress. But what it also does is it inhibits you from feeling good emotions too, right? So you're blunted. But when you do a psilocybin journey, which is magic mushrooms, then you actually get to have the ability to perceive the situation differently, heal that part of your brain that needs help, and be able to like not blunt those good emotions that you need to feel as well in the future. And it's not something you need to constantly be on either. You don't need to take this medication every day. You can do a psilocybin journey maybe once a quarter, and you've already released so much stress and trauma from your body that is holding you back and keeping you depressed. And there are a ton of research articles that talk about this, but I'm really glad that you brought that up. If you keep yourself open, you can definitely, yes, manage the symptoms, and everything serves its purpose. So whatever you're feeling called to, but if you are someone that has been taking antidepressants for 15 years and now you're still not, satisfied, there are other alternatives. And perhaps, this is an awareness for you to have.
Real fast, I know that our time's getting short, but I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you ever had experience working with people that have, maybe they've been on drugs and now they're one of the transition drugs like methadone, or there's another one and I can't think off the top of my head, but
Suboxone, Subutex.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
work with people?
I have. Yeah. The first treatment center I worked with, they worked with medical assisted therapy, are these medications. And those like methadone, for instance, the longer acting opioid, it actually is really, really, really these alternatives that these pharmaceutical industries give out They actually are made for you to be on them long term, and they're actually really, really tough to come off of. So you're actually better off doing the heroin than doing the methadone treatment, which is so sad. But that is the pharmaceutical industry. That is one of the realities. There are several Netflix episodes that talks about this. One of them being Dope Sick. The other one, I think, is, I don't remember the other one, but there are a few on Netflix alone that talk about Purdue Pharma, the Sackler family, and how these medications are out there and they are not doing good. Well, they're definitely not helping you. So they're just keeping you addicted to now something else that's regulated.
It irritates me to the fullest. Like, it makes me so angry that what you're doing, like the plant medicines and the energy healing, it is gaining more, I feel like gaining more momentum now. But
Sure.
for so long, I mean, people don't even know about it. And to me, it's just really sad because it's like the first path of healing that people go down is pharmaceuticals. And it's, look at the rise in pharmaceuticals, the people that's on pharmaceuticals, and who's getting better. That's the question that we should be asking.
I
Who's
think one
actually
thing to
healing?
highlight is 75% of the world's drugs are used in the US. So that can give you some insight. There isn't a cap on how much pharmaceuticals can charge for their medications. So there's incentives for, medical doctors to prescribe them. And that's a reality that we don't see in Europe, right? Or other parts of the world. So these are just things to be aware of. And it's sad, but at least through our work right now, we are advocating for change by just bringing awareness to people who don't know about alternatives, who are suffering, who've been through trauma, who need the help the most.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for people like you that are doing that and telling, healing people on a real level, foundational, like going back to the basics and then telling other people about it. It's so valuable. And I just tell people, like, opening your mouth and sharing is so much power, because through that we can change the trajectory. And I just believe that all people are beautiful and unique in their own way. We all serve a purpose here on this earth, and tapping in, finding that purpose. But if you are in just trying to cope through day-to-day activities, you're just in survival mode, it's really hard to find your purpose. You're just trying to survive another day. And my heart, and I know just from talking to you this last hour, like, I feel like your heart as well is just helping people get to a place where, now you're on level ground. Now you can go find your purpose. Now you can live in the thing that you're called or put here on this earth to do. And you find beauty in life when you are able to tap into that. And so I'm very grateful for you and for your work, Zahra. You're doing amazing things. And I'm so glad that you come out of IT and found your purpose in changing lives and, make an impact. So that's amazing.
Thank you
So I do want to give you an opportunity to tell my audience where they can find you. I have a couple people off the top of my head that I'm like, I need to send some people to her, because I've had these conversations and just not had anyone to really send them to. I would love for you to tell my audience more about yourself, more about where they can find you.
So you can definitely find me on my website, www.zahraadloo.com. I hope Amber provides you that link, because I know my name is difficult.
In the show notes, it'll be there. And I think your name will be on the screen too. So.
Okay, perfect. So it's my first and last name.com. You can email me info@zahraadloo.com. You can find me on Instagram, and my handle is ZEESHIRAZI. Definitely DM me. I'd love to have a personal connection with you. I find that it's really important for anyone who wants to do work with me to have a connection first, because there isn't a one size fits all therapist or integration coach. And so if I can help guide you to someone else, or if it's with me, that's really important.
Yeah. And all of that will be in the show notes. But if you're listening and you're driving and you can't get to the show notes, reach out to me. You guys all know how to get in contact with me, and I can put you in contact with her as well. So just let me know, and let's get people healed. Any final takeaways or things that you would really like to leave my audience with?
I really want to open every person's mind to just stay in gratitude, even if it is super hard to see what you're grateful for. Start out by like naming 2 positive things in your life, and that will help you shift your mindset with time. So those 2 positives could be just waking up out of bed or being able to walk on your 2 feet, so really, really get into shifting yourself into this practice of being in gratitude. And I promise you, with time, you're going to see how you attract so good in your life to where everything, like I said, becomes magical, and you're no longer in this victimized state, and you're no longer in this spiral of negativity, because what you think is what you attract. So I really, really, really want to like preface that. Every thought leader will say the same thing. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube. Everyone is saying it, and that there has to be a reason for it. And I am a testament to that. And I truly believe in that. So just focus on the thoughts and staying in gratitude.
Yeah, that is so good. I love it when my guests at the end of the show, they just drop the mic. It's like, that's right. I just put it right here. That's the key to life there. But it's so true. It is so, so true. And I just thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I wish we had hours upon hours, and we might have to just bring you back on, see what kind of feedback we get and questions, and bring you back on eventually. But man,
for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey there, friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time here with us on Through the Trauma podcast. Your presence means more than you know. If this episode has spoke to you or gave you hope or made you feel just a little bit less alone, then I would love it if you would take a second, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who truly needs to hear it. Every share, every comment, every listen, it all helps our message get out and reach those who truly need it the most. Healing happens inside of a community, and together we are breaking the silence and creating space for transformation. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not alone.